Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to talk about variables in AgentScript. By the way, my name is Sanket and you are watching AgentScript series. Here in this series, you are going to learn how to write AgentScript and build better agents, right? So in the past, we talked about system block, config block, and in this session, we are going to talk about variables block. So so in AgentScript, right, there are three different types of variables. So first one is regular variable and you have system variables. So regular variables are those variables which has a value and it can be mutable or non-mutable. So when I say mutable, it means you can change it. You can change in the life cycle. But if you make it non-mutable, it means it's constant. Like you all know in Apex, there is a constant variable and then you have a variable which whose value can be changed. So think like this. So 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 those are regular variables, and then you have linked variables. So linked variables are read-only variables. So then you will ask, right, like what is the difference between a non-mutable variable, non-mutable regular variable versus linked variable, right? So non-mutable regular variable does have a predefined value. Like you define a value yourself, like you define as a developer, you define that value, whereas linked variable gets the value from some other variable, means from a source. You will not hard code that value, right? So that's the difference. And the major difference is it cannot be set by the agent. Like mutable variable value can be set by the agent, but linked variable cannot. It's same for non-mutable as well. And the last one is system variables. So system variables are like you don't need to really define it, you don't need to write it in the system. So it's like think it like reserved variable from AgentScript, right? So those comes standard. You don't need to really define it in your AgentScript, you can directly just use it. Now let's talk about quickly naming conventions. So it will always start with a letter, and it can only have like letter, number, and underscore. You cannot have trailing or consecutive underscores, and maximum 80 characters, so not more than that. How to refer it? So to refer it, like to reference a variable in a script, you will just say curly braces, exclamation mark, variable dot name, and then what are the different properties we are going to talk about, right? So while defining a variable, you can write these property like mutable, which I explained you, and then you have description and then label. So these are three different properties under the variable definition. So let's first see some examples of like regular variables, right, which are mutable. So I have mentioned here username and then colon mutable. So as soon as I mention this as mutable, it means right now it is of type string. There is no value assigned, like it's an empty string. The label is username. This is, you can think of it as like API name of the variable or developer name, and description is to describe like what this variable will hold, right? So that LLM can use it accordingly. So you are guiding your LLM uh, by defining a description of a variable, so that they can use it for a specific purpose, right? So these are the different types. Like I wrote it here string, then for boolean, I just saying like default as false. It can only have two value, right, for true and false. So yeah. And then mutable string, again here visitor nodes. So in this case I have not written label. So label is not like a mandatory. Even descripts, even if you don't write description, right, let's say you can just keep it like this and click on save. Even you don't need to pass a description, but it's always better to like provide a description for LLM to like understand what it does and why you have defined that variable for. So let's see all the different types of the variable. So in Agentforce, like we can have a string, number, boolean, object, date, id, and list of string, right? So basically a list variable. So these all are like different data type of the variable. You might find it like very similar to Apex. In Apex, for a variable you have different data types. like string, decimal, integer, right? There also like you had all this boolean, object, list, set, map, right? So in the same way, here you have string, number, boolean, object, date, id, and list of string. So let us just let me just copy from here all these and write down here in the variable block, and I'm going to save it. And you see, right, it all got saved. So let's do some experiment here. So as part of a string, you can pass blank value like this. What if you pass null? Does it take? Yes. Then in true boolean, you will always like make true or false. What if you just what if you don't write anything? Does it work properly? Let's preview it. It works, right? So let me go back here. Let me say, what if you say true and save it? So default value true. Yes, you can set default value is true. Object object is like simple. You can think of JSON object, same, right? You can define. If you take it out mutable here, so let's say you take it out mutable and save it, and if you preview, let me do one thing. So if I click on set context, and this is object, right? So I removed it mutable, so I can't override the value, like it's always constant, whereas I can edit others value here, but I can't do for the object. So yeah, I mean, this is all about the data type of the variable. Let's go to quickly understand a little bit more about list. So here I have shown you example of list of a string, but at the same time, let me copy this. So at the same time, you can have a list of string, list of number, list of boolean, like it depends on you, right? What you want to do. So let me say number, list number, and I will say, let's say 5, 6, 7. So this is a list of number, and then let's say list of boolean, and I will name this as list of boolean, right? Here I can mention true. If I say true, false like this in a small, it will not work, because true and false, I think, yeah, apply and restart session. Okay, it is taking in variable value, but ideally you should do like this: true, false, true, and save it. What if like you want to do a list of object? Will it work? It should work. So let me say list of object, and here I will say object, right? And I can give list of this. Yeah, so you can make the variation of list and then of any type you want to do. Then how about regular variables, right? Sorry, the constant. So the constant one I shown you, this is one of the constant. You can say non-mutable, right? So that we know. The next thing we want to do is understand how to define a label. So far, like this description I have given here is of just one line, right? So what if I want to provide a multi-line instruction? So to provide a I have explained this in the previous video also. You just need to use pipe sign, and you can switch to multi-line. Let's say I want to give 4 line of instruction for this variable, right? So this is how. So this is example of just one line description, and this is multi-line description. So it's up to you. Next variation we are going to talk about is linked variables. So as we said, right? Let me copy some of the linked variables from here. Yeah. So I have defined 3 linked variables here. So one is end user ID, then second one is contact ID, and then session ID. So here I have said end user ID linked a string. So as soon as I mention it linked, I cannot define a value. So I cannot say like this equals something like this. It will throw an error. So the value will come from source, right? So this is the property we have to use, source. And then you can refer other variables here. So for example, I think this is causing some issue. So you can see all the source from here. So if you see at the rate, these are the variables you can use. What if I have to can a linked variable use like regular variables like mutable one or non-mutable one? Let us see. So what I'm going to do is I will use variables dot, let's say, username, and if you try to save it, it's giving me an error. So it is specifically it's saying me that source must reference one of these variables, like either at the rate messaging session, at the rate messaging in user, at the rate voice call, or and so one of these. But I'm using a regular variable, so that is not right way to do that, right? So let us use voice, or let us, so here I have shown you messaging session, here messaging in user, and here I can use voice call. Yeah, so these three different variation is possible in my org. Like you might see some more option based on the org and licenses you have. So this is how like you will define the linked variable. Where do we use linked variable and where do we use regular variable? So regular variable you will use to control the logic, write the logic of your agent, whereas linked variable will be used to use any standard predefined variables like messaging session. So you want to know what is the user ID or the contact ID of the messaging session, something like that, right? So for such cases you will use the linked variable. Now the next variation we are going to talk about is system variables, right? So what are the different system variables you have? So you don't need to really declare system variables. Like here we manually declared regular variables and linked variables, whereas system variables you can directly use it. So for example, right here, let's say you want to know that what was the last utterance by user. So you can just use system variable dot user input, which will give you the last, like most recent utterance, right? So this is how like you will use the system variables. Now let us see how we saw like how we defined the variable and data type of it. Now we are going to see an example of how we can use them. So for example, this is my start agent, or this is my sub agent greeting. So here if I want to use in the reasoning, let's say in the reasoning I want to use any variable. So in the logic I have used variable at the rate variable dot is returning. But if I want to write the same thing over here, it's not the right way to do that. So how we will write it here? We will write, we will do curly braces, explanatory mark, and then at the rate variables, and then we will close. So this is how like you will use the variables in the instruction, and in the logic you will use directly if at the rate variable and then variable name. So this way, yeah,